Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining. I'm joined today by Lily, Merissa, and Sharon. The three of them formed a hackathon team as part of the cmd+f hackathon, which is British Columbia's first and largest all-women hackathon. Today we're going to be talking about the project they built called Kaizen, which is an application for improving healthy habits through virtual communities. And we'll go into a lot more detail than that, but thank you, Lily, Merissa, and Sharon for joining us today. And I just want to start by just doing some quick introductions. If you could all kind of tell me where you are in school, what year you're in, what you each contributed to the application, which part of the stack you worked on, and what's your experience with hackathons? Was this your first hackathon, or have you done others in the past? So great. Let's do Lily first.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Lily. I'm currently in my third year at UBC, majoring in business and computer science. On the team, I was mainly working on the back end, so creating the endpoints as well as the database and schemas, and also with deployment with Heroku. And this is my 8th hackathon.
8th, wow, cool. All right, Merissa, you want to go next?
Sure, I can go next. First of all, thank you so much for having us here. We're so excited to be here. So yeah, my name is Merissa. I'm also a third-year student at UBC, majoring in business and computer science. And on the team, I was focused on developing the front-end side of the web application, which also included making design decisions. And this was my second hackathon.
Cool. All right, Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm also in third year, majoring in computer science and statistics. My role in the hackathon was mainly working in the backend as well, working with endpoints and setting up Sentry and Firebase authentication. This is actually my 7th hackathon.
Wow, all right. Got some real experienced hackathon participants. Awesome. Okay, so, this was not the first hackathon for any of you, but was there something that you were hoping to learn from this hackathon that you thought would be different from previous hackathons, or what did you what were your expectations going in? Anyone feel free to jump in.
Oh, I can go first. For me, I really wanted to build onto my front-end development skills, especially making something in a shorter time frame. So although I have a bit of front-end development experience, the projects that I've worked on were over the span of a few weeks rather than, within 24 hours. So that was something I really wanted to challenge myself during this hackathon.
I can go next. I guess I had kind of like dev goals and also more so product goals. On the dev side, I just wanted to learn new technologies and just explore different tools and stuff. And then on the product side, just learning how to scope and also take ownership for features, as well as just going through kind of a smaller product development lifecycle.
Cool.
Yeah, for me, my main goal was to basically work efficiently in a team without a supervisor, being responsible for our own work, and also having valuable debates about the feasibility of certain features and discussing the challenges that we will face.
Awesome. Cool. All right, so let's get into talking about the app that you guys built. Can you, obviously I gave a very brief intro to the app, so can you kind of tell me a little bit about the inspiration for the app, who was the target audience, and what is the app designed to do?
For sure, I can take this question. So our project was, when we were brainstorming, we were really thinking about the pandemic that we're all in and the negative effects that many of us have experienced, whether on our mental health or physical well-being. And, it's really caused an increase in stress and anxiety for a lot of people. And it's made it difficult to do activities that we previously loved doing with others, or even on our own. And I think because of that, it's more important now than ever to focus on developing these healthy habits. And in doing so, we can kind of fight these negative effects of the pandemic. So yeah, we created this application specifically for women who want to develop healthy habits. especially in the midst of a pandemic when they might be isolated or away from their regular communities. So women who would appreciate a supportive community while striving to develop healthy habits.
Great. Lily or Sharon, anything to add on that? Or?
No, I think Merissa nailed it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So can you tell me a little bit about the tech stack that you use to build Kaizen?
Yeah, so on the back end, we built an Express and Node.js web application that was powered by Firebase Authentication, CockroachDB, and MySQL. And then on the front end, we use React, JavaScript, Bootstrap, Google Cloud, Sentry, Node.js, and then Heroku to deploy our application.
Wow, that's quite a lot of technologies. How did you decide on those specific technologies?
Yeah, so we discussed what our core competencies were, utilizing that information to decide what kind of technologies we wanted to use to build our application. And also we all have experience with like full stack web development. So we were deciding on what kind of technologies are common to all of us and or had more experience on.
Nice. So how many of these applications had you used before versus were brand new to each of you?
Brand new. Personally, using CockroachDB was one of the newer kind of technologies I used. And also SQLize was also a new technology that I use. I usually just use MySQL or like the Node MySQL library. But SQLize was one of the technologies I personally was new to.
Great.
For me, I was working on the front end. Yeah, I worked with React before, but I've never worked with Bootstrap, so that was new for me.
Yeah, same thing with Sharon. I was pretty familiar with the back end except for CockroachDB and SQLize. I had a bit of experience. So.
Nice. Okay, so for those of you watching who aren't familiar, I am from CockroachDB. I'm an engineer at Cockroach Labs, so I'm obviously very interested in the CockroachDB side of the app. How was it working with CockroachDB for the first time? Was it challenging or surprising in any way? How did that go?
I guess starting with like the easier parts that we saw was definitely the setup. Working with like having worked with like different database tools in the past, I usually have some difficulty with setting it up and creating the relationships and like the entities in the schema. But reading and going through all the documentation, it was really clean and actually made the setup quite smooth.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and something to add about challenges probably, and something that we were surprised about. So we were pretty more used to using like MySQL Workbench, so then migrating to CockroachDB was less interactive, and so we had to adapt to that. Something that surprised us was how developed CockroachDB is, particularly its integrations with like services like Kubernetes, Docker, AWS, GCE, and so on and so forth.
Nice. So were you guys using Cockroach Cloud, or did you download the binary for CockroachDB and do self-hosted?
We actually did the binary version just because we wanted to incorporate with like Node.js and SQLize, and we thought that was like the easiest and fastest way.
Nice. So were you hosting it on a cloud provider or just locally on your laptops to start out with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had it like locally just to start off. But yeah, there is hopes to eventually transfer it over to the cloud as well.
Cool. That's great. Got a LinkedIn user saying, great. That's great to hear. So you mentioned that you read through some of the documentation. Were there other pages or courses that you used to help out with? Did you use Cockroach University at all to learn how to use CockroachDB?
No, we basically just followed through like one of the specific documentations for Node.js and SQLize, and then we went through that. And then we also noticed like the source code that was available. So we were scanning through that as well.
Nice. So, okay, so you actually looked at the source code of CockroachDB or some source code examples using Node.js or?
I think it was actually from CockroachDB. It was like near like the bottom of the article, and it was just examples of how you can set it up.
Very cool. That's great. Okay. So you mentioned that you learned all of these new technologies, stepping back a little bit from CockroachDB, just kind of talking about the tech stack in general. Was there something else you learned besides each of these different technologies that you hadn't used before in the process of building this app?
Personally, when I was using SQLize, so I actually learned SQL from work. We don't use SQLize. And so it was the first time that I heard of like many-to-many relationships or many-to-something relationships. Basically, the whole idea about relationships. And that was the first time that I heard like Lily talking about them. I was like, oh, what is this? I just write the queries. So that was my first encounter with, like learning more about SQL.
Cool.
I think for me, well, all of us, we're more on the developer side than the design side. So we didn't have a designer on our team. So we kind of had to look into, different UI UX practices and try to apply those to the design for the app that we were making. Figuring out like what would make it more easy or interactive for the user. So that was definitely something that we learned along the way.
Nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. I saw the video. Maybe we can show the video to people who are watching in a second. But first, Lily, anything you want to add for this question?
Yeah, I think just adding on, just in general, growing as like full stack developers and really the soft skills attached to that within a hackathon, being able to accomplish it within like 24 hours and being able to like scope features out and understand what is feasible was a really great learning experience.
Cool, awesome. All right, so if you all don't mind, maybe I'll show the video that you posted on the website. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Let's see. Okay, I think I need to share my screen first. All right. Can you see that?
Yep.
Let's see. Hopefully the sound comes through.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Hi, I'm Merissa.
And I'm Lily. First off, meet Isla, who, like many of us, is still in the middle of the pandemic. When everything first began, Isla felt pretty sad and lonely. Her family was miles away, and the only friends she had in the city were a couple hours away. She spent many days and nights trying to figure out how to adjust and cope with the new setting. At times, she'd aimlessly binge an entire series of a show or stare at the ceiling for a good hour.
But as the year began to come to a close and new trends and habits surfaced on social media, Isla felt the urge to change and to start living more intentionally. She knew that she needed this for her mental health and her physical well-being. Hence, she started going for a walk every morning, setting screen time limits on her devices, and took a more conscious approach to her meals. She instantly felt a lot better, but she was still missing something. She missed being with her friends and doing their favorite things together, whether it was for health or for fun. And that's exactly where Kaizen fits in. Inspired by the Japanese word, meaning a method for transforming habits incrementally, one step at a time in order to continuously improve, Kaizen focuses on connection, diversity, health, and growth.
As soon as users enter the page, Kaizen displays the user's relevant habits and the community's current progress. The best part is that when users sign up for a habit, it's collaborative, meaning users can participate in habits together to keep each other accountable and healthy. In particular, the community progress bar for each habit will only be fully completed if all members of the team participate accordingly. Users who are interested in exploring new areas of interest and diversifying their array of habits can look towards this Explore feed to see what cool things others are doing as well. The habit categories.
I don't think we can see the video. It says exit full screen.
More. Once a user picks a habit category, it can create a specific.
Oh, sorry about that. It says exit full screen. Okay. Sorry. I couldn't see the chat. All right. Let's try that one more time. Exit full screen. All right. I'm gonna start from the beginning. Definitely just stop me because I couldn't see see the chat while I was playing it. Stop me if this doesn't work.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Hi, I'm Merissa.
And I'm Lily. First off, meet Isla, who, like many of us, is still in the middle of the pandemic. When everything first began, Isla felt pretty sad and lonely. Her family was miles away, and the only friends she had in the city were a couple hours away. She spent many days and nights trying to figure out how to adjust and cope with the new setting. At times, she'd aimlessly binge an entire series of a show or stare at the ceiling for a good hour.
But as the year began to come to a close and new trends and habits surfaced on social media, Isla felt the urge to change and to start living more intentionally. She knew that she needed this for her mental health and her physical well-being. Hence, she started going for a walk every morning, setting screen time limits on her devices, and took a more conscious approach to her meals. She instantly felt a lot better, but she was still missing something. She missed being with her friends and doing their favorite things together, whether it was for health or for fun. And that's exactly where Kaizen fits in. Inspired by the Japanese word meaning a method for transforming habits incrementally, one step at a time in order to continuously improve, Kaizen focuses on connection, diversity, health, and growth.
As soon as users enter the page, Kaizen displays the user's relevant habits and the community's current progress. The best part is that when users sign up for a habit, it's collaborative, meaning users can participate in habits together to keep each other accountable and healthy. In particular, the community progress bar for each habit will only be fully completed if all members of the team participate accordingly. Users who are interested in exploring new areas of interest and diversifying their array of habits can look towards this Explore feed to see what cool things others are doing as well. The habit categories range from physical wellness, productivity, mental wellness, social connections, hobbies, and more. Once a user picks a habit category, they can create the specific habit that they want to track. Users are then able to see their progress on their current habits to see how close they are to reaching their goal. Users are also able to see their weekly statistics on how many habits they have completed each day that week. Okay. Through this application, Isla, you and I no longer have to worry about the lack of social connection or the lack of motivation to keep going forward with our lives during these trying times. So join us as we connect, learn, and grow together as women in tech with Kaizen.
All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Did that work that time?
Yeah.
Were you able to hear the audio?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, very impressive video. Did you make that whole video and get all that functionality working during that 24-hour period of the hackathon, or did this come afterwards?
Yeah, I was within the 24 hours. It's actually a little bit stressful. We should have allocated a little bit more time for it, but we were able to scramble and film and edit and upload the video just in time. So yeah.
Wow. Very impressive. And there were a bunch of different screens too. So how many different pages of the application did you have to build during that 24-hour period?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think maybe it was 5 or 6. Yeah.
Very impressive. So what was the timeline like? I'm just curious. Having never participated in a hackathon myself, and probably other people watching might be curious as well. how did you structure the time of the 24-hour period in order to actually get all of this done and the video uploaded in time for the 24 hours?
I can explain, I guess, part of it. So we spent, like, I guess, a couple hours, like 1 to 2 hours, or brainstorming our idea and like scoping it down more. And then we also spent that time, I guess, deciding like our endpoints and what pages we wanted to design. And we actually spent some time in the beginning because we didn't have a UX designer. We were creating the design ourselves. So that was kind of like an additional hour. And then from there, we were kind of aiming, it started around, I believe it was 11 a.m. And then we were aiming to get all of the development done by around 6 p.m. But as traditional hackathons go, we didn't end up making that deadline. And so we pushed it off to 9 p.m. And then around, I think it was around like midnight where we actually finished the development, or most of it. And we were kind of piecing everything together with the front end and the back end. And then I believe we started the presentation around like 4 a.m. And then wrapped that up. And then we started filming pretty late, which was kind of, as Merissa mentioned, it was kind of a rush. But I think it ended 11 a.m. like the next day. So I think we started filming around like 9:30 or 10. But yeah, we thankfully met the deadline, but it was definitely hectic.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. And how do you even prepare for a 24-hour period like that? Did you, try to go to sleep and then wake up right before the hackathon, or you must have been pretty tired by the end?
Yeah, we were pretty tired. Oh,
no, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, preparing for the hackathon. Basically just get enough sleep so that you can wake up early and also have a clear mind to brainstorm. Before the hackathon, we just did a little bit of brainstorming, just like basically get our ideas like all together and like so that we can like maximize the amount of a brainstorming time. But yeah, it was quite hectic, very, very stressful, but a good learning experience.
Yeah, I bet. And had the three of you worked together on a hackathon team before, or was this your first time working as a team?
I worked with Merissa. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with Merissa before, and I also worked with Sharon, but I don't think we ever worked together like as a three.
Cool. So how did you decide to work together? I was poking through the cmd+f website, and I saw there was an opportunity for people who didn't have a team to find a team the morning of the hackathon. Is that how you all found each other, or did you work it out separately on your own?
So Lily and I actually did cmd+f last year, and it was very fun. So then, of course, we wanted to do it again this year. So that's how we found each other. And then also, like Lily knew Merissa, so then we joined together because we were all very interested.
Nice. And you said you did a little brainstorming before. Did you come up with something like this idea for Kaizen before the hackathon started, or was the idea mostly fleshed out during the hackathon?
Oh, it was definitely fleshed out during the hackathon. So I think the night before the hackathon, we were kind of just talking about different topics or issues that we could tackle. So this one was like habits and women's mental health in the pandemic. Something else we were discussing was like trying to tackle the issue of domestic violence also during the pandemic. So there was another idea that we had there, but we chose to go with this idea among some others.
I'm curious about the domestic violence idea. Was did you have an idea for an app that would solve that problem or address it in some way, or it was more just kind of brainstorming the potential problems that you could solve?
Yeah, we were thinking about an idea for an app that would try to combat the negative effects of it, definitely not solve the problem. But our idea was to create like a food delivery service or fake food delivery service where people could secretly indicate that they needed help if they were living in a home with domestic violence, but didn't really have a way to reach out without the other person knowing. So, yeah.
Oh, that's a neat idea. So how did you come to the final decision of working on Kaizen?
I would say I think setting up, or we decided the scope of that project would probably be too much for a 24-hour hackathon, and there's probably like certain data that we would have to handle that will be more complicated. So we didn't want to kind of stuff that into a 24-hour hackathon when it should be given more time and consideration, given the circumstances under which the app would be used.
Yeah, there's a lot of thorny issues there to handle. But yeah, Kaizen seems like a great compromise. Great, still important, tackling an important problem, but also fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So do you have plans to continue building on Kaizen now that the hackathon is over?
I can chime in for this one. I would say we do have, I guess, intentions of wanting to continue it just because there's a lot more that we can do with the application. But at the moment, as we are like quite busy with work and school, it's not our current priority right now, but we definitely would love to go back just because we have a lot of like, I guess, ideas for it.
Yeah, very cool. Makes sense. Aggregate and reward common good habits. Awesome. What is the token for rewards? Okay, so this is a great question from a LinkedIn user. Is there a token for rewards for people completing their daily habits?
Currently, it's I guess once you reach your set number of days for your habit, it completes the bar on the chart, and then it shows on your profile like how many habits you've completed. Currently, there is no token, but I think that would be a really good idea to maybe add a badge or something. On each person's profile, you can see like what habits they have completed, but I think that would be an awesome idea to create a badge or something that they can kind of use to track their progress.
Nice. So I know you said the database was hosted locally, so I assume this app isn't actually accessible to people outside of outside of yourselves. Is that true, or is there a way that people can try out the app for themselves?
We do have a link on the project page, but on Heroku, it sometimes kind of glitches out and doesn't work. So it really depends on your luck. But there are parts that aren't like fully connected to the backend yet. So you might not, I guess you might encounter like bugs and stuff just because it isn't like fully polished.
Do you all have profiles on the app? Have you tried using it yourselves at all?
I haven't created one.
Yeah.
No.
No, not yet. We have a test like account.
You were too busy actually building the app to
We actually set up
to use it. No, that's fair. Cool. All right. So do you have, I know you kind of described the schedule or how you broke down the time during that 24-hour period, but do you have any anecdotes or experiences to share from the hackathon that are particularly memorable?
I can start off. I guess kind of like a takeaway for me personally is being adaptable. So Merissa mentioned earlier, like going into this hackathon, we didn't have a UX and UI designer, and we were actually pretty nervous about that. But even each of us were really willing to step up to the plate and adapt and kind of fulfill that role together to do our best as a team. And we were super happy with results and what we learned. And I feel like this moment really showcased something that we tend to forget in life, is that you don't have to be an expert to do something or try something, and you'll never know kind of where it goes. And for us, we were really happy with the design. And so I think it was just a takeaway that you don't need to be an expert at all. Just be brave and be bold and see where life takes you.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I can go next. I think it's really important in a hackathon that you're open to new technologies. So it's kind of like standing off from being adaptable. But in hackathons, it's the best place to learn new technologies and to test new grounds, things that you want to try out, because that's the best way to learn for yourself, is to actually dive into it and actually explore. Another thing is, this is a quote, or part of a quote of a book that I read, is to like practice radical honesty. And this is for everyone, but is to really help out with working in a team, even in a company, to work efficiently. And so being radically honest and also like providing good feedback is what will help with like an agile environment, and also working like really efficiently, but also making sure that like, everyone is like on top of things.
Great.
Yeah. For me, I would say going back to our struggle with the video and trying to get that together in time, I would say for any project, whether it's a hackathon or a school project or a work project, I think it's really important to give yourself enough time to make the final presentation or deliverable, because no matter how much you work you put into the project itself, it's important to be able to communicate that to other people clearly and concisely, and for them to understand what the project is really all about. And that's how you'll make your impact, and that's how people will understand what it is that you put so much work into. So I think that's definitely something important to keep in mind for any project that anyone works on.
Nice. Great. Thanks, all of you. I have a question here from somebody that says the design looks great. Did you run into any bugs, have to learn new tools on the spot, or encounter other technical hurdles? You guys want to comment on that?
Yeah, I want to say we ran into a couple bugs. I guess on the database side, I think we were trying to like code pretty fast and efficiently, and there were certain times when you were missing like certain parameters, which didn't allow us to build the relationships, and so we had a lot of like app crashes because certain entity was not perfectly, I guess, like the relationship that we set up wasn't completely like clear, and we were missing certain information. So that was definitely a huge struggle that we were like encountering.
Yeah, another thing was that because we didn't have a designer, we all collaborated on Figma, but then using Figma is actually kind of challenging. There are some features that we're not familiar with. Like for myself, I was just trying to find how to create a box, and that was like a challenge.
Nice. Anything to add, Merissa?
I think that pretty much sums it up. There are definitely bugs on the front end as well. Nothing that sticks out to me right now that I can remember, but yeah, there was definitely some debugging that went on there. Yeah.
Cool. So just to dig in a little bit more with the database problems you're having, since I think a lot of people listening to this are interested in the database design side of things. What did you end up with your your entity relationship diagram, or how did those entities end up working out in the end? You said you struggled a little bit with that along the way.
Yeah, at the end we ended up figuring it out, but also certain bugs like we kind of had to navigate around it. But for the relationships part, we ended up figuring it out, which was good. And we had, I guess, like a lot of different relationships. So I think that was one of the main reasons why we ran into so many issues. Because in certain areas we had like one to many, many to one, and we were trying to like join the data and stuff like that. And yeah, thankfully it did end up working out. But I think part of the fun in a hackathon is running into the bugs and figuring out how to navigate them. So nonetheless, I think it was still very memorable.
So what was an example of a many-to-many relationship in your database schema?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember?
I think, okay, I guess one I can name off is a person can have many habits, but because our application is like people can share habits, in a sense, a habit can also belong to many people. Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense. Nice. All right, let's see if there's any other questions in here. Doesn't look like it. All right, so I have another question for you guys. Having participated in multiple hackathons, each of you, what advice do you have for other people who might want to try hackathon?
I can go first. I would say think about what you want to learn or gain out of the hackathon. I think it can be really intimidating for maybe someone who hasn't done a hackathon before, or even us who have done hackathons before, going into hackathon to be kind of nervous about the time frame and whether you can get your project complete on time. I think rather than focusing on the end product or the end project, think about the journey before the destination. So what do you want to learn in the process, and what do you want to actually get out of the experience? Because at the end of the day, you're there to learn and pick up skills and try new things. So make that your main goal rather than having this polished end product. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and just something to add, I think it's also important to like learn from others, because in a hackathon, you're put into a pool of like people that you don't really know, different kinds of people, they're all new to you. So I think you can take advantage of that to learn from others and also to network with others. It's really important to be able to like learn from others, because some people might have different experiences than you, or they might have the same experience, but they have different opinions.
Yeah, and I think adding on to Sharon and Merissa, I think figuring out how you can leverage each other's strengths, because you are building within a very tight timeline, and being able to delegate tasks based on that makes you a lot more efficient. But also on the other end, just figuring out how you can help each other improve and reach individual goals. And I think another thing, also just having fun with the hackathon. I think it's very easy to get stressed out, but also remembering that, hey, this is just a fun project that you're doing on the side. So there's no need to, be stressed about it, because it isn't like a hard deadline. It's not an assignment or like a job task. So there's nothing to stress about in the end of the day.
Great, thanks. So going off of what you mentioned about trying to decide who works on what, how did you decide who was going to work on which part of the application?
Mm-hmm. We kind of started off by like stating our experience, especially with technologies, and whether we were stronger on front end and back end, and we kind of just delegated based on that. So Merissa and Sharon were both more experienced, I guess, on the front end and also the back end. So we kind of divided on that. And for me, I was more experienced on the back end, and so then we just worked on like those aspects.
Nice. And I'm just curious. So how this was probably the first hackathon that you've done that was virtual, right? Or have you done other virtual hackathons as well?
I've done a couple, but I would say like each one that I've done, just like as if it was in person, is still very different depending on the team environment that you're in.
So how does a virtual hackathon differ from an in-person hackathon?
For me, I would say it's, I think when it's in person, you can really feel the energy that's in the air and the environment and everyone that's participating in the hackathon, whereas online, you're mainly interacting with your team. And it's, you guess I have to like consistently check like the Discord or wherever the hackathon hosts are like posting information versus if it was online, you're in the room. So there's less effort in that. And I think, nonetheless, I think hackathon hosts so far have been trying really hard by organizing a lot of like mini contests or like mini breakout rooms where you can have fun, like sing karaoke and things like that. So in many ways, I think both ends, they have like pros and cons.
Nice. Anything to add, Merissa or Sharon?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Lily said. Without being able to see all the other teams competing in the hackathon, it's definitely a different environment. Also, not being able to be in the same room as your team. So in in-person hackathon, you could kind of just look over at their computer, or if you have a bug, you can kind of just show your computer to the person next to you. But in a virtual environment, it's a bit more tricky. Of course, there's like screen sharing and stuff, but it just makes it a bit more of a barrier in terms of like describing what's going on your side or understanding what they're working with.
Was it difficult to get help in the virtual environment?
In terms of like within our team or external help?
Well, I guess, I don't know, one of you mentioned that in a normal hackathon, there are people walking around asking if you need help. How does that work in a virtual hackathon?
Mm-hmm.
I think, oh, sorry, we're sticking up.
I was gonna say more of like administrative questions, not as much technical questions. For any like technical help that we needed, we kind of just asked each other or went searching on Google for it. But yeah, in terms of like administrative questions, if we had a question about the timeline or the project deadline or something, it would be a little bit more difficult to get the answer for that compared to an in-person hackathon.
Makes sense. Nice. So going back to CockroachDB a little bit, having now built an app with CockroachDB, do you have any advice for other users of CockroachDB?
I think definitely utilizing the great documentation that you guys have, and also like just looking through the source code if you're having a lot of difficulty with it. I think I noticed that you guys had a variety of different folders depending on like the platform. So for us, we were looking specifically at Node.js and Sequelize. So that was definitely really helpful.
Great. And did you run into any issues using Node.js or Sequelize, or was it all pretty seamless?
I would say it was pretty seamless. Yeah, I definitely ran into like more issues using other database providers before during hackathons, so I would say it was pretty good.
It's great to hear. Hopefully some of our docs team and app dev team is listening. That's great. Cool. All right. So that's most of the questions I have. Is there something that you want to share about the hackathon experience that I didn't ask about, or anything about being a woman in tech in general? This is sort of open to I just want to share.
I think if for anyone who has an issue or something in mind that they want to tackle, and maybe an application that they or a product that they can think of that might be able to tackle that issue, I would say even like whether you're able to participate in a hackathon or not, I think it's worth brainstorming the idea and fleshing out the idea and trying to make something out of it, because it can definitely lead somewhere, and there's a lot of space in issues in society that still need to be tackled. And I think technology is definitely a way to connect us and tackle these issues, especially in the midst of a pandemic when things are virtual, and that's kind of how we're mainly connecting with each other. So, yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah, also extending off, I think it's also important that, especially for women, don't be afraid to try out new things. I know that people are just very afraid to change, but that's just the way we are. And if we're able to really tackle against that, then like, good for you. Like, you're honestly a very good person. You're an amazing person, actually, for stepping up and standing up for yourself.
Yeah, and I think adding on to Sharon, when I attended Command F last year, I think one thing that I was able to take away was really the power of community, and also especially like the women community. So I definitely want to say, especially for women in tech, really continue to empower each other and empower and I guess leverage your strength as well, going back to my previous point, but figuring out how we can, I guess, impact the world using just by being who you are. And I think, yeah, I think, sorry, I just don't have a clear idea, but I think really just the idea of figuring out who you are and how you can contribute, even as like women, you have a lot of impact that you can make. So definitely look into that.
Awesome, thank you all. So before we wrap up, I'm curious, what's next for you all? What's the next big project that you're excited about working on?
For me, I want to gain a lot more front-end experience. So this summer I am looking into, I guess, gaining more experience with that and looking into more front-end technologies and like concepts that I can learn more about. But I also love to explore more like the design side and understanding how important like user research is, just stuff that encompasses like UX and UI designing.
Cool.
For me, I guess I am interested in learning about the product lifecycle and tackling the process that a product manager would go through. So that's kind of what I'm interested in learning more about. So yeah.
I think for me, because at work I have experience in like front end, back end, I think the next thing for me would to be learning more about like DevOps and GitOps. I've had like tested like it's a gray area for me. I've like done a little bit of it, but I would be more interested in learning more about it because I think like that field is actually so important to making an application work, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, best of luck with what comes next, and hope you can get some great experience on those new areas of interest. And I think we'll wrap up here. It's a little bit early, but give people 10 minutes back of their hour. And thank you all who were watching for joining us. And thanks to Lily, Merissa, and Sharon for taking the time to share about Kaizen. It's pretty impressive piece of work. So thank you all.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us
Thank
here.
you.
All right, I'm ending the stream.